Hey guys, welcome to a new MapleStory training guide. It's been well over a year since I made one, and I'm sure you guys would like me to hash out a new rendition of it since the days of my old channel, so here it is. The format for this training guide will be the same as its predecessors, but with the addition of alternatives during each leveling segment, including some of my own places to go to, so hopefully you guys can find some new changes of scenery. As per routine, the timestamps for each level will be in the description below should anyone want to skip to a certain point, and in the comment section you are more than welcome to suggest other training spots if you do happen to run into them. The level ranges for each area are meant to accommodate for the average unfunded player, but those of you with gear and items that take your damage higher than usual can always take on training locations that are 10 or even 20 levels higher than you. Next on removed accuracy, so fighting higher level monsters will not cause you to miss anymore, rather you just deal less damage. So if you have strong power leveling gear, you can bypass that completely. In this video, I'll of course cover the level of crowding in each map, but that only really applies to Bera and Reboot because every other server has been crippled in terms of population. So I suppose if you're in one of those servers, it's a blessing in disguise to not have to fight for a map. Hooray for dead servers, yay! But seriously Nexon, when is the world merge coming? And the same way I put up ways to improve your training experience or expedite it, I'll also put the list that you can do here. There's a lot of more stuff that they added, including burning maps and of course a few other things you can do. And they actually forced and mandated you to use runes in certain training locations because I think they're trying to remove any form of AFK training. And I think that's the reason why they put in the rune, which is, you know, it's not a bad thing. They encourage you to use runes, and runes are obviously good to use anyway. But hopefully I can get some cool comments from you guys from the question of the day if you've already seen it. Just grab some snacks and a drink and let's get started. From level 10 to 20, the main place to go is the Golem Temple as usual. You can technically stay here until level 30, but you ideally want to be here only for the first 10 levels. The best room to go is the Flaming Mixed Golems, but you can also stay outside and take out the regular Stone Golems until around level 15 before you actually go inside. An alternative location from Golem Temple is the Radiant Rock Forest. It houses the Amethyst Takas. The map is sizably larger than the Golem Temple, but the spawn is decent and the movement of the map is very linear, so you can traverse it in a rotating fashion. Regardless of which map you're on, at level 20 you want to head over to the next location. Giant Tree is the next area you want to train at. It's become increasingly popular over the years for training and botting alike. As a result, Nexon ended up nerfing the spawn rate for the green Curse Eyes, but the yellow Evil Eyes are still a good place to go to until level 30. The map's terrain is very curved, so flatline attacking classes will struggle to land their hits, and the Evil Eyes also jump on and off platforms, so they can be bothersome to actually deal with. Unfortunately, to my knowledge, there aren't really any better alternatives to train other than Evil Eyes, unless you count Golem Temple, but otherwise it doesn't really take much effort to get to level 30 anyway, so you just have to deal with it for now. After job advancing, head on over straight to Gold Beach. This is a great place to train all the way up to level 50, even though the monsters only hit up to level 42, and that's because the map terrain and spawn rate is phenomenal. My favorite location here is the Softwave Beach because there are a ton of flying fish slimes and the map is very linear. Other players tend to train here a lot too, so if you need to find a new location inside the Gold Beach, Gentle Waves, which is a map over, is basically the same as Softwave Beach, although with I think a little bit less spawn. As for our alternatives outside of Gold Beach, there are two, both of which are in Pantheon, the Anti-Magic Forest and the Enchanted Forest, which are nearly identical maps with just slightly different monsters. The layout of both maps are the same as Amethyst Takas, and the spawn rate is comparable as well, though it's a far cry from Gold Beach of course. From level 50 to 60, spend some time at the Burnt Land Empyrean. The map is quite large, but there are a ton of wild boars here so you can keep yourself good. Like the Evil and Curse Eyes back in Giant Tree, those guys can jump across platforms, so if you want to, you can herd them together onto a platform or into a corner to take them out all at once. The size of the map is quite large, and since most classes have only a flash jump, navigating around will be a little bit tedious. On the other hand, mages have a really good time here, since teleport can transport them from platform to platform because this map is tall as it is wide. The other location for this level bracket is the Rienna Strait. A lot of players don't know too much about this themed dungeon, but it's actually quite good. The questline is quick, it's neat, it gives you some decent low level gear and a medal. I don't see myself doing this PQ since I like to power level, but for you guys who like to enjoy the game slowly, then this is definitely an option for you. To get to Rienna Strait, there is a quest you should run into on the light bulb on the left of your screen. You can also take a boat from the harbor to get to Rienna and talk to Lachelein to be granted access. It doesn't take much effort to reach there. Around now, your options really start to open up. There are 3 that you can take on between level 60 and 75. In the early 60s, you can go to Excavation Site Military Camp 1, which is located in Empyrean. At the center of the ground floor, there's a portal which warps you to the very top floor of the map. From there, you can jump down and take out the Scale Dogs and Mummy Dogs from each level until you reach the ground, and then rinse and repeat. The spawn here is quite nice. It's not too crowded. Around level 65 though, you want to go to Copper Tricks and Sleepywood. Like in Military Camp 1, Silent Swamp is even and leveled with the portal at the bottom that takes you to the very top, allowing for a steady routine of heading up, jumping down each platform until you reach the bottom and doing the cycle all over again. This is a very crowded location, especially in Bera and Reboot, and you might struggle to find a channel of your own, but since Copper Drakes are level 68, there is another map that's a similar level that not many people actually go to. Stairway to Sky 1 in Orbis is a personal favorite of mine. Just like the previous two areas, this is a multi-level map with a top-down method of training. In this case though, instead of a portal, it's a spring. The spawn here is excellent, but is counterbalanced by the map's slanted structure, so flatline attacking classes will find themselves at a disadvantage here. This map can keep you occupied all the way until level 75 though. From level 75 to 85, your best bet is Ice Valley 2, and exactly like the maps that led before, this also has a top to bottom mechanism. The Wildfangs here have comparable spawn rate to the Copper Drakes and Silent Swamp, and this is a well-known training area, so you might run into other players training here. This is also the only real good area to train in between level 75 to 85, because nowhere else but El Noth are there monsters that are around level 80 with decent spawn. But if you do feel confident enough, you can skip this level bracket altogether and just head straight on to level 85. Between level 85 to 100, go over to Nihal Desert. There are a ton of areas you can stay in. First area is Sahel 2, a rather well-known area in the community. The map is small and the spawn is good, but Nexon did nerf the map if ever so slightly. It's still a nice place to train at the very beginning, but once you get closer to level 90, you can head into the northwest portal into the desert of Serenity. It's even smaller than Sahel 2 and has good spawn rate. You want to stay in these two areas from level 85 to 92, 93ish, and then go into Magadia. Pretty much any map inside both Alcadno and Zenumist laboratories are fair game because they have decent spawn. But the three best areas I've seen so far are Lab Area B1, housing the Mithril Mutates, Lab Area C2, which has Roids and Neohuroids, and then the Zenumist Lab 201, which has Homunds. All three of these areas are flat but relatively wide, so classes with high mobility like Dual Blades or Hiatos can find themselves at home here. Stay in Magadia until level 100 and then go get your 4th job advancement. I'm going to take a quick break in this video to discuss something that will be present in your training starting level 100. From now until around level 200, you'll run into areas that are Starforce zones. Monsters in these areas have much more HP than non-Starforce monsters, and to adequately deal damage to them requires Starforce. Starforce can be acquired by enhancing your gear, giving you 1 point of Starforce for every 1 star on your equips, which is then totaled up. Click on the icon at the top right to be taken to my old Starforce guide if you want to learn more about it. Anyway, let's get back on track. Alright, so from level 100 to 115, I'll break it into half for 2 areas for each of the level ranges. Early on, especially if you're an adventurer, you'll just have job advanced in Leaf Race, so head over to the Cranky Forest and train on the Hobie and Green Hobies until level 105. The map is really big, but the mobs only spawn on 5 total platforms and there's a crap ton of them. No one trains here, so crowding is a moot point. At level 105 to around 115, go to Ludibrium and stay in the Toy Factory Apparatus room. When you first enter, you'll notice this room is extremely large, but don't be fooled, it's actually quite small. There are 3 total levels in the map and a good 10 or so robos per level. It's a great place to train and a huge favorite of mine back when it used to be a level 60 map. This map is well known and can become slightly crowded, but it's nowhere near as bad as the likes of, say, maybe Copper Drakes. Okay, so I'm bringing back a really old classic here. Does anyone remember STDs back in the pre-Big Bang days? No, I do not mean sexually transmitted diseases, I mean straw training dummies, and by extension wood training dummies. I decided to go check the area out again, and I was pleasantly surprised to find another viable training spot. From level 115 to 125 you can chill here. Like the Ludi Toy Factory, there are 3 levels with relatively equal spawn, although the map is a little bigger, so be mindful of that. The Starforce alternative for this level bracket is Dual Ghost Pirates, which is actually in a hidden map within Warp Path of Time 3, although it's really easy to find. It's been a while since we had those top-to-down training maps, and there's a good refresher right there. DGPs are amazing, the platforms are tightly enclosed, there's a ton of spawn, you'll find yourself training super well, especially if your class has ample amounts of mobbing and sustain, and if you play a class with a mobbing hurricane type ability like Xenon's Beam Dance or Wild Hunter's Wild Arrow Blast, when you just got your 4th job, you'll be enjoying this map quite a bit. There are 2 areas you can train in level 125 to 140. One is Starforce and one isn't. The regular areas are Korean Folktown's Moon Bunnies and the Goblin House, a little further in. Moon Bunnies have amazing spawn, despite the map's relatively awkward hilly shape. This area tends to get crowded quite a bit since it's the best non-Starforce area to train in around this level range, but when you reach around level 135, finish the last 5 levels further into the area by going into the Goblin House. This map is relatively small and the spawn isn't that great, but since it's so compact you can clear everything pretty quickly. And low spawn rate can be remedied by Kishin or Frenzy for you bigger players. Should you want to go for a bit of a faster gain in exchange for tougher mobs, the Starforce alternative is the Cave of Trials 3, or commonly known as just Starforce Banes. This is a very long map and the mobs are spread out, but the spawn is adequate, and since it's Starforce you can get a ton of experience per kill. Even though Banes are around level 136, they're good enough experience to even get you to level 145 due to how many there are and the high amount of EXP. If you guys need a fast way to get there, just go to the 3rd job advancement building in El Nod, talk to your respective instructor, and they will whisk you right there. Now there's one very wonderful training location that's been released to us since my previous training guide, and that's the reworked Kerning Tower. If only they gave us CDs back though, that'd be great. Actually, they're still there, they're just not the best place to train. The only issue is that you need to be at least level 145 to reach this location, so you can do that either by staying in Starforce Banes or by going to Stone Colossus. Not many people actually go here because when Nexon released it, no one cared about it, but when I was doing Silent Crusade, I actually wandered in for a little bit, and I found the West Road maps in Stone Colossus. These maps are decently sized, very flat, and they have amazing spawn. If you don't have enough Starforce, you can come here. Their levels are around 10 above yours, but non-Starforce maps are relatively easy to train in, especially with 4 job skills. But there's one other area you can go to until then, and that's Starforce Skeletons in the Dragon Nest left behind. The mobs here are high level 140, low level 150, so if you're entering at level 140, you'll encounter difficulty because of their high HP, but in order to deal full damage to them Starforce wise, you need only 15 more stars, since they're 70 versus Bane's 55. Doesn't take as big of a jump in gear progression, and you should be able to get that no problem. The spawn here isn't great, and the maps are very weird, but you can tough it out just a few levels, you'll be granted access into the Kerning Tower where you can have a much better experience. The Kerning Tower becomes a popular training spot from level 145 up to even level 165. There are a series of maps of both normal and Starforce that you can train in. From my experience and just by scanning the maps, all of them have around the same size and the same spawn rate, so it's a matter of preference. But the larger the mob is, the larger their hitboxes as well, which means the best mobs to train at are Enraged Espresso Machines and Deadly Dressing Tables because they are the largest. You want to stay in Kerning Tower until level 165 or so, and that sets the stage perfectly for the next training location. Showa Town parking lot, which they finally changed in GMS because in Maple Sea you could go to parking lot pretty much until level 200, but now it's available to everyone. The parking lot is a very long map, so classes with good mobility can make use of the area, but stationary classes can probably get some work done here as well. There are a lot of platform objects in this map such as the cars and the grating, and that might get really annoying for aerial mobility classes like Mercedes and Dual Blade, but otherwise they finally added a good training spot for this level range, which in my opinion is the Limbo level range because there's literally no good place to train between level 160 to 170. For some reason, the mobs in this map give the same experiences as monsters around level 180, but they're only 168 to 170. But yeah, you can stay here all the way up to level 185 if you want to. Unless you use Kishin or Frenzy though, the spawn in the weird map structure may or may not be too appealing. Either way, terrific place to train for a long time. Since the time of my last training guide, Nexon added a great area to train in to replace Knight's Stronghold, which used to be the previous place to train around now. Omega Sector just got revamped and there's some good Starforce maps here to train in. The HO corridors are all equally good, the maps are flat and decently sized, and since there are 3 per channel, you don't have to worry about them getting too crowded. The biggest difficulty is that the spike in Starforce requirements shot up by a solid 60, so you unfunded players will have a really hard time here, but as long as you have around 125 or more Starforce, you should be safe to go. And that's not too difficult to attain since you need only 14 pieces of equipment with at least 10 stars to easily get 140. Whatever the case though, you only need to train here until level 180, but level 185 is a good level spot too because these guys give a lot of experience. Last stretch before you get into that sweet 5th job advancement and start progressing into the end game. So head over to Forsaken Excavation Site 2. Now the last level range I set to stay until level 185 because while you can enter Twilight Pyrrhion at level 180, the Rocky Masks here are 195. Not Starforce, so they're a little easy to kill, but a 15 level gap cuts your damage down significantly. And unless you can at least 2-shot these monsters, your training will be very slow. Fest 2 is one of, if not the best training spot in the entire game, not for all levels, but in terms of map design and spawn rate. Without Frenzy or Kishin, the spawn count here reaches well above 25, and for how the size of the map is, you can't ask for a better spawn rate. This area does get quite crowded since it's literally the best place you can train from now until level 200, but should you face difficulty in finding a map, you can try either Rough Canyon or Desolate Rocky Road depending on your level or strength. Both maps are, for all intents and purposes, a direct downgrade. The spawn rate in both maps are about the same as Fest 2, but the map sizes for both are much larger so the distribution is thinner. Either way, they all make for good training locations, and they're not Starforce, but they're the best that you can find. I'd say Twilight Pyrrhion is the only place that you can train in, and I did, but there's actually one other place that you can go to, the Fox Valley. It's been introduced into the Shades Fox Point Village, and the best maps you want to go to are the ones in the sky. But you do need to do a couple quests in order to actually get access to it, even if you want to teleport to it. The maps here are ridiculously large, so I'm still partial to FES 2, but I mean it looks a lot nicer than Twilight Pyrrhion and the experience is not bad. You can also choose to stay here if you want to, but unless your class has a lot of vertical mobility, you won't be having much fun here. Anyways, that covers it for the level 10 to 200 section, so let's go over into the end game. Now that you hit level 200, you'll be granted access into the Arcane River, a new world location that is responsible for your 5th job update. The maps here employ a different kind of Starforce known as Arcane Power. The Arcane Power is acquired by upgrading your Arcane symbols, which are given to you by way of quests and can be upgraded by using more Arcane symbols. There are other areas to train outside of Arcane River like Black Heaven Scrapyard and Dark World Tree, but the experience is just so much better in Arcane River that you have zero incentive to even go to the other places. Like seriously, the experience in Arcane maps are basically triple that of Scrapyard and Dark World Tree. Right then, so let's get started. From level 200 to 210, your first Arcane River area is the Vanishing Journey, and the locations of choice for training are in the Cave of Repose. My two preferences for where to train are Western Cave Path 2 and Below the Cave, both housing Tranquil Urdas. What's cool about these mobs is that there are actually two mobs. If you kill the Tranquil Urda, they spawn a Lantern Urda, which means the spawn rate is naturally high here since you have to kill every mob twice. Below the Cave is slightly smaller than Western Cave Path, but the latter has more spawn and lower platforms for multi-level mobbing. Either way, both are good. You'll have to complete the Arcane Journey prequest to reach this area before you get to start training, but when you do, they're open forever. Next location is Choo Choo Island. Very adorable name, by the way, and it's kind of punny. In this area, it takes a much more brighter and jovial atmosphere than Vanishing Journey. There are 3 places that you can train here. The first is Slurpy Forest Depths, which is better suited for classes that prefer to remain stationary to train, such as mages or Night Lord. The map's spawn is a bit small than the other locations, but since it's a small map, it evens out. The next spot is Biddy Bobble Forest. This area is good if you play a class that has good mobile training such as a Shade or Dual Blade because they can easily hit the upper platforms without actually having to be there. I would argue that this map is better than Slurpy Forest Depths overall, even for immobile classes, but I'm just pointing out the possibility. Lastly, we have the Torrent Zone map. My personal favorite is Torrent Zone 3. This area requires you to swim through the Arcane River to reach the small islands, which can get pretty annoying, but if you play a class with extreme horizontal mobility like Xenon or Dual Blade, you can travel from island to island easily without actually having to swim, and the spawn is amazing. The Torrent Zone has a portal on the very right that warps you all the way back to the left, so you need not swim against the current to train, but whichever one you pick, all 3 zones are really good and you should get to level 220 pretty quickly. Lachelein is the 3rd location to train at from level 220 to 225. I say only 5 levels for this area because the next Arcane River only requires level 225. There are 2 training spots for this area, Revelation Place 3 and Chicken Festival 2. Chicken Festival 2 is better for mobile classes who can cover large distances and multi-level platforms because the map is long and the platforms are very high up, which means most classes can't easily hit the second row of mobs without having to actually climb up. Should your class be better suited for smaller maps that aren't too spread out, you can go to Revelation Place 3. The spawn here is not nearly as much as Chicken Festival, but the platforms are better centered, so classes like Luminous or Ice Lightning Mage will feel much better here. Both locations are really good to train in though. In my previous guide, I did say to train in Clock Tower, but I was actually mistaken. You want to stay in the Lachelein City since the maps are less cumbersome. The Clock Tower has very awkward platforming, and while it is a top-down function, it's just too impractical for you to actually use. Now for the rest of the Arcane training spots, I'm going to be calling over Kobe from iSling Guns and Matt from Misusing TV to help me with footage because since I left for a year, I didn't train any of my characters to keep up with the level limit for the new areas. So thank you again guys, always a pleasure to work with you. And definitely be sure to check out their channels. Kobe covers a lot of stuff in KMS, which by extension goes to GMS later on. And Matt is one of the best players in MapleStory, so should you want to go super endgame content, you can watch his. From level 225 to actually 240, you want to stay in Arcana. Arcana is where the training gets really tough because you need over 350 arcane power to take on any of these maps without damage mitigation, and these guys have a much higher level. If your previous 3 arcane symbols are decently leveled, you should be able to tackle these guys no problem in terms of arcane power, but since they have a lot of high HP, you better hope that your gear is good enough to at least 2-shot these guys. The top area to train in Arcana is Cavern Lower Path. These guys here are level 237, so if you're entering right away from level 225, you're taking a 12 level hit in damage. But by now most players that are around level 225 have about 2 to 3 mil range, so you can, with effort of course, train here easily. Lower Path is a familiar sight. It's the same 3-level platform training map like Toy Factory or Training Dummies. A lot of characters get low cooldown and full map of 5th job attacks like Dual Blades, Heroes, etc. And due to the map's good spawn and small size, it's the most optimal place to train until around even level 240 before you go to Esfera. I'm completely skipping Moras because from what the community has said, Moras is very suboptimal for training due to the extremely large map sizes and structures, and because of the fact that Arcana goes all the way until level 240 for the monster levels, there really is no reason you should even go to Moras. Of course, you definitely want to pick up the Arcane symbol though. And if you guys do want to train in Morris, you're more than welcome to. Arcana is just more efficient for the sake of min-maxing. Finally, we have the new upcoming area which will open in tandem with the ARK class release known as Esfera. This place is cool, and there's some good training spots here. Global MapleStory has yet to test out where the best places to train are, but Contaminated Sea looks to be the best location. The monsters here give huge amounts of experience, like well over 550k each, and the maps are sized pretty small, so you don't have to navigate around as much. I think Esfera is the last location before they give us the Black Mage, but I could be mistaken, so correct me if I'm wrong. This should be the final stretch, level 250. There have been many players who got to 250 before Arcane River even came out, so now that we have so many better training spots, it should be easier for us to reach the high levels. But that completes the training guide from level 10 to 250. Nah, I'm not quite finished yet. We still have to go over the training alternatives for this guide, and there's a small number of them, so let's get started very quickly. First is Monster Park Reborn. It's a good little bit of experience you can get every day from level 105 to around 210. You're granted 2 entries per day, but with reward points or NX you can get another 5 more. Monster Park gives some coins with each run so that you can use to buy some very good potions, including the Golden Potion, which gives bonus experience. The best time to do Monster Park is on Sunday because the reward for that is experience coupons, which last for either 30 minutes or an hour and can be either 1.5 times EXP or 2 times EXP, so definitely a must-have on Sundays. Next is bossing. Nexon nerfed bossing as a means for training because every boss now can only be accessed once per day, which really sucks because Zakum and Horntail were great ways to speed through a ton of levels, especially between 100 to 160, but they're still viable means of gaining experience. The best bosses are Chaos Zakum and Chaos Horntail, although the former has become Chaos Root Abyss levels of difficulty, so you might just want to stick to normal. And Medman Ranmaru is also a good boss from 180 to 200 if you ever need to do him as well. And the others, of course, they're always there. I just don't know exactly how much experience Hilla, Von Leon. Pingbean actually gives a good amount of experience, it's just that you need to do a lot of requests to get him, and by then it's not really too worth it, but if you do have him already finished, then you can always do Pingbean. Right, so that officially finishes up the new training guide. I haven't done a 30-minute plus video in a long time, but that feels really good to finally get it off my chest. Many players have complained that Nexon made power leveling harder, but I think they're just trying to keep us from going private server levels of speed in training, because, you know, even in GMS you can go up to like maybe 12 times experience or even 18 times experience. They did provide a lot for us though. They added new training places to substitute and compensate for the ones they took away, like Lionheart Castle and Stronghold. I really like Omega Sector and Kerning Tower a ton, not to mention the rework of Showa Town's parking lot to match Maple Sea. The new Arcane River maps are amazing too, and I can't wait to get started on training my main characters again. If you guys have any questions, do not hesitate to ask them, and I'll be sure to try and help you out as best I can. And I tried my best to keep the video as short and sweet as possible, because I do understand that my previous training guide was absurdly long, and I know that every other training guide on YouTube is pretty long, so I'm trying my best to keep it, I guess, as close or as small as possible, so that you guys don't have to watch the entire thing. I did provide timestamps though, but you know, it is nice to not have an entire like hour-long video. Once again, a thank you to Kobe and Matt for helping me make this video. Be sure to check out their channels in the description below. A top 5 classes video will be coming out when ARK is released, so stay tuned for that. I'll see you guys in the next video, and take care.